We got a lot of seats up here in front if anybody wants to come on up here. But I'm going ahead and get our meeting started. And first item on the agenda is the animal control funding. So I just want to open it up. Pamela, you got anything you want to say right now?
Well, I think you've gotten all the information. I mean, I have it with me for me to go over any of it, if you have any questions. But I think y'all probably are all aware of our dire situation and need the funding. The amount we're asking for is the minimum we really need to stay in operation, and it's vital that we get full funding before we go to Park County, because first thing they ask us is, what's Franklin County doing? And, you know, so that's a double-edged sword then. So, you know, we just again need for full funding to process.
It's up all there to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, you know, we have batted this issue around several times. We've talked about it in a lot of different forums. Somehow or another, you know, we need to make a decision as to fund this shelter, to keep it open, or just let them know we're not going to. I mean, it's, I think we're to that point now. If we decide to go forward, then you have to figure out, you know, where the funding will come from. But I think first of all, we have to have a commitment that, you know, we're gonna keep it open, because the alternative won't be good in my estimation.
I guess this. What's the consensus of the board?
I'll add, Commissioner Coffin, as you're aware, I'm the one that asked for this to be put on the agenda, and my main reason is we have received 3 formal proposals by the shelter, and I think we need to respond in a formal manner. And I think we need to have an open dialogue. If you're asking me personally, I sat down, number one, I took the tour of the shelter, myself and Commissioner Coffin met with the board members. I think the shelter provides a vital service for the county as well as the other entities who are a part. And I've looked at, if the shelter were to close, I personally believe that being our only form of animal control that we have in the county, we would probably have to go back and either, you know, work on a shelter ourselves or hire an animal control officer. And in looking at the budget, we allocated $30,000. We amended the budget, added an additional $8,500. In looking through the budget, I will tell you that all that I have come up with is about $5,000 of additional funding. I'm in favor of increasing our funding level. I do not know that if that can be done here tonight. Looking at the number of animals who are taken in by the shelter and proportionately where the animals originate from, I do think that we should increase our share with all of the partners and the stakeholders in the shelter. The aspect of the funding, that's a different story. The $5,000 I came up with was due to the changes that we're going to experience in the election with the commissioners as well as the magistrate, which that was not factored in during our budget cycle. I'm not saying that there's, you know, not additional monies and allocations that can be made. I think that's going to be something that will have to be made by the whole board. But I personally do not think that we could or should hire an animal control officer, paying a salary, insurance benefits, a vehicle, etc. I don't think that we want to open a shelter up on our own. Typically, when you can consolidate functions like that in government, you're much better off. But we have to make sure that it's operated within the confines of the budget and revenue framework that is available.
Any other comments?
What kind of cost-cutting measures has the shelter done?
We have cut things to the bone. We donated things wherever we can. We personally put in funds ourselves, the board members have. Our employees are bare bones as far as numbers. There's a lot of part-time people, because you have to have a certain number of bodies to fill in.
When you say bare bones, can you give me a number of what you ran last year and if there's been any cost cutting as far as this year? As far as hours, or as far as...
There's no way to cut our hours. There's myself and one other employee that's full-time. We have to be there the whole time the shelter's open for euthanasia. You have to have 2 full-times that are trained for euthanasia. And then I've got 4 part-time people that are strictly cleaning people.
Well, I just didn't, I asked if there had been any cost-cutting measures, and Pam said about
Right,
the,
we cut years ago, it hasn't necessarily been from last year to this year. We cut many years ago, started cutting back to the bare minimum.
I recommended to y'all, which I'm sure that you've not implemented, about charging, say, $1 to $2 per animal that is coming in. That seemed to be just kind of.
We are asking for a donation when people drop off animals. If they would like to give a donation.
Well, I know when you go to the rec department, people that come in, they have to pay $1 or $2, and that's something that y'all have not implemented.
Well, it'd be hard to do, we take in about 3,000 animals a year.
And that would-
So you're talking about $3,000 to $6,000, which certainly every dollar helps, but that would not make or break the budget. A lot of people can't afford it, they're bringing in animals that they found on the road that aren't even their animals, they're being a good Samaritan, they get dumped on the dirt road or whatever. Animal control accounts for some of these in cities. Also in the sheriff's department, the Department of Agriculture contacts our sheriff to go out and put them down a puppy mill or a situation like that.
That's right.
So we would turn around and be billing the county in that situation, for instance.
Well, I got a call from you back several months ago saying that y'all were gonna ration the animals that you take in. You were gonna take in X amount per month and then start, and you did not implement that either?
We tried, but the problem is when you have the public bringing in animals that are not their own, and they're bringing in litter of puppies, you can't charge them $6 a head for the puppies, or it's not, $25 for 10.
No, that's not what I got a phone call from you saying that y'all were going to have to cut back on the animals that you take in. That you had a figure for me that you called
The quota.
the
What we were
quota
saying
per
was,
month. And you,
Franklin County was paying for about half of the animals that were being brought in. In other words, Franklin County essentially, if you go from July year, would run out of funding, although it's divided out over the year. Each quarter, halfway through the quarter, the funding will be used up. So anything after that, we would have to charge the people for. And we kind of experimented with that, but people were saying, well, I'm not paying that, not even my animals, I just take them out and dump them. You know, so that was not going to be effective. It was going to actually increase the problem, and that's not what we were about trying to do.
Well, living in that area, knowing the rural nature of it, I'm sure Allen Farm and Bear Creek Road would bear the brunt of that,
Right.
as they already do, but that would just increase the situation.
And people leave animals in the pens every night. I mean, we come into work, everyone got outside the pen, somebody sells something in there.
Which is illegal, by the way. But,
Well, if you close down the shelter, it's gonna get worse. I have phone calls all the time coming in with people that their animals are running loose. Y'all need to have a leash law. Well, then, of course, then you're gonna have to hire an animal control person that we don't have funds for. If you close down the shelter, it's gonna get worse and worse, and Stevie's gonna be getting more and more phone calls back there, so it's a problem in the county.
well,
one thing about,
I'm just trying to get a grasp on any cost-saving measures or fundraising measures that
Well,
have been.
there's a cost efficiency study that they provided to us, and, you know, in studying that, I mean, they're cheaper than anybody in the northeast Georgia area. I don't see how they're doing what they're doing now. I mean, if these figures aren't good, let's see what it's gonna cost, you know, the county to do it. And I can guarantee you those figures will increase.
After our meeting, I basically got a copy of that and did some research as to the cost of an actual shelter operation, and you're much better off with consolidation of municipalities and our counties, is providing the least cost and best service for all.
Has anybody looked at what, and I've not had time to do research, has anybody looked into what Elbert County is doing?
Elbert County has a city shelter and a county shelter. They charge for animals to come in, they're only open certain hours. They turn a lot of animals away, and they euthanize, they actually have a vet they pay that comes in and euthanizes their animal. They don't have anybody on staff that euthanizes for them.
and this is a point of information, last year, year before last, I guess it was, when we met with Hart County Board of Commissioners, they said one of their options was, well, we're gonna contract with Elbert County and take our animals to their shelter instead, because we think it's a better deal. And within a month or two, they said, never mind, we're not gonna do that anymore.
And they strictly have animal control officers that go out.
And why did they give a reason why?
Because the service was not there. I don't want to say anything negative against their shelter, but I don't know the details, but they just felt like we were giving them a better deal and better service than they could get to them, even though they initially thought they would be charged less that way.
Their shelter's not open to the public like ours is. It has less hours and, that 2 hours a day that the public can come drop off animals. We're open from 11 to 4 every day.
Do y'all ever open after hours if it's a law enforcement issue or they rabid?
I go out numerous times, middle of the night, meet the sheriff's department. I've gone out with Stevie and then in the middle of the night a couple of times.
If y'all wouldn't mind, I'd love for Steve to.
That's right on the back road.
I was hoping we would.
Everybody knows what's gonna cost to put down the patrol officer there. It's very easy to say that I would like that, but the money's not there. You gotta have a place to put them. Well, if you let the animal shelter close, we're backing up where we are. Sherry's been out several times with me. We've went out on several occasions where I've had Shelby with his crew to come out with some pens. They brought 10 and we picked up 10, 12 dogs at a time in places where people have moved off, keep finding locations where they move to, they left their dogs. And all that's doing, that's breeding more dogs to come bite somebody next door. And so we're just trying to make it safe for the citizens. And I think anything we can do, we need to do it for them because they're an asset for us. If we didn't have them, we'd be hurting bad.
I guess then more question, okay, how we gonna fund it?
Well, I think the more important question is how much is it going to cost to fund it? They said that $5,000 is not a drop in the bucket. We just gave them, what, 8,500?
In addition to the 30,000 that was allocated.
And so, when does it become a drop in the bucket?
The amount of funding that we need to cover Franklin County's share, and this is just the county, the unincorporated part of the county, not including the cities, which pay separately. Even though, of course, those people are county residents too, the cities are to be paid separately. Okay, they're covering their percentage, they're paying their share based on the intake. But Franklin County's is 22.7% of the animals we're bringing in. Our budget, the bare bones budget, and I know you don't like that word, but it is, it's been pared down as much as we can. We have fixed costs, even things like liability insurance and our utilities and things like that. We've extra insulated, done a lot of things that I didn't go into, of course, as far as cost-cutting measures. But anyways, our budget is based on $160,000. That's what we are asking for these amounts from the various jurisdictions, based on $160,000. Our last budget was actually $169,000. Over the past just over 2 years, we've actually, through fundraising, donations, grants we've written, things like that, we've come up with over $61,000 that we put in over 2 years since April 1st of 2010, outside of the jurisdiction funding. That's gone to things like keeping the building up, major maintenance, capital improvements, things that aren't even included in the budget now. So this is a bare bones operating budget, if you will, the $160,000. You probably heard on the radio, I hate to bring up bad things about other shelters, but the news about the shelter up in Raven County. I just happened to hear in passing that the county, of course, is continuing to fund that because they had no other option. That was the only shelter there was through its problems. And the county alone apparently was a funder for that. There was $175,000 county, and they're a much smaller shelter as far as intake and population.
So,
in comparison in our region.
what would Franklin County, I just did some numbers here, and it looks like it's about close to $76,000.
We were asking for
68,320.
which comes to
Which is
$17,080.
proportionate share based on the intake.
Right, that's based on intake. And if some of you were aware of the meeting we had in 2010, where we met with all the jurisdictions, and we came up with a formula based on the intake. and proportionalize it just on usage. That's how we figured the counties and so forth. The cities actually pay a little more based on the population too, but based just on usage. The amount comes out to be for what we take in now, 68,320, and we've averaged that over 4 years, the previous 4 years intake average. So there's not going to be a sudden jump if for some reason you had a bunch of abandoned animals, or somebody began rounding up strays or something and it had a jump that year. It's not going to greatly influence the amount from year to year. Our intake stays around 3,000 a year pretty much anyway, but we built in that 4-year average and it just slides forward each year, and then we base what we're asking for on that.
How many pets are adopted each year on average?
I have somewhere in the
And I'll segue from that into, have you looked at adding maybe $5 to $10 to adoption fees?
We have added money to our adoption fees. We do not keep any of the money that comes off adoption fees. It goes straight to the vets for the spay and neuter. We do not keep a dime of that money. Dogs are 55, cats are 45, and every dime of that goes to the vets to pay for the spay and neuter of those animals.
Okay, I've got here, this is for 2011. We had 367 adopted, 29 that died, a few escaped, 1,500 plus were euthanized, some were in foster homes, 50 were released back to the owners.
Okay, that's fine, I just was not aware of if that was a revenue stream that you used for your operation.
But one other thing about that, 713 went to rescue groups. Sherry worked very hard to network with various rescue groups to get those animals out of the shelter to where they can be adopted. We have a limited number of families in our area looking for pets to adopt, unfortunately. We have a lot more looking for places to take them. So that's well over 1,000 that were placed in homes.
So you're essentially asking for what we budget to be doubled.
A proportionate share of what we use, if we.
Yeah, and that's just basically, the two counties are the only ones that don't pay the same rate pay for their share of use. The cities do.
Well, I mean, this is where I have a problem. Last year, we cut the sheriff's department's budget, we cut the rec department's budget, we cut the EMS budget, we cut the 911 budget, and now we're going to double the animal shelter budget.
But you're looking at those cuts from full funding, if you will. We were only funded at half all during that time. So you were cutting this based on less than full funding to begin with.
And how long had we been,
2 years.
Right. 2 years at the 30,000, before that it was 45.
That's correct.
And I think the year that we got 45, your share would have been, I'm going to say 58, 59, something like it was in the 50, something 50.
well, now, when they went up to 45, that was during, that was about in November of
45 is what was
10.
allocated year
Before that, it was 30,000.
Sometime back it was.
2 years ago. It was 1 year that we funded, that was before I came on board, that they voted for $15,000. And I think that was either in 09 or 010. I mean, 09 or 10. And then, last year's budget, we cut it back down to 30,000.
But since then, our number of animals coming through our doors has also increased.
Because people have to give
Due to the economy.
and such. And not only that, our donations have gone way down. In the past, we've always been underfunded. From the time we opened our doors in '98, we've been underfunded. But we've been able to make up the difference through donations and so forth, and working hard at fundraising, that kind of thing. And lately, we've not been able to do that as much because those resources are not here for us too. They drive us a lot. So our expenses have always been higher than our funding. And they have gradually with inflation and cost of insurance going up, because it's gone up tremendously, liability and property insurance too, not just, we don't have our employees all on health insurance. I think Sherry's the only one that gets any kind of health insurance benefits, and it's minimal. But it's mainly property and liability insurance, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of liability issues with employees, with the public coming in, when you're dealing with animals, a lot of them are feral. So, things like that, and the utilities and such are a large part of our budget. You've got somewhere in your, that folder we gave you a couple months ago, all that itemized out.
Okay, I talked to Jeff about this, and Charles, about our rabies hold. We had a child come in today, we have a puppy we're holding for 10 days for a child that was bitten. That's $25 a day. We hold that animal that we absorb the cost. About the people whose child got bitten is not paying the cost. Health department's not paying that cost. We're absorbing that cost. There's only 2 people in the shelter that can touch that animal because it's possibly rabid, that's me and one other employee, because we're vaccinated against rabies.
So it costs $25 a day, or is that just an arbitrarily cost?
Between the
I
cleaning,
mean, from what?
That's the quarantine.
that's
from-
quarantine,
That's
that's
not the
quarantine.
average.
That's for quarantine or rabid animal. You call any vet around here and they're double that. But I mean, you
And
can
a
call
vet.
Louis and ask him how many animals we quarantine for rabies hold, and we average.
What
30,
makes it so expensive to quarantine?
Because there's only 2 people that can touch that animal.
And those 2 people are there already, right?
We're there, but you gotta think about, we have to have rabies vaccines, we have to have titers pulled every year. I'm in the office a lot of times, I have to do other things.
I'm just trying
I
to,
know.
I'm trying to understand, if that dog wasn't in there, that animal shelter would not run $25 a day less. The actual cost.
I mean, it is a lot more cleaning procedures too, you have to keep,
It's more labor intensive.
Labor
What do we use to
Paperwork
clean with?
intensive.
we use bleach, we use other products, I mean, we have to double bag everything that we take out of that animal's cage, that's a more expense. You have to wash all the laundry separately before you put any laundry in with the animal. I mean, it's a disease that can be spread. And, you know, we don't want to expose, and none of our other employees can go in that room, except the 2 that have been vaccinated.
But you don't have to hire anybody special to come in for that animal,
Not at this
correct?
point, no.
Which is much more labor intensive, more like that.
And I understand that.
That's got consolidated into the figuring of it. And as you mentioned, if you talk to a veterinarian, they're gonna charge more for something like
But they're
that.
making money, they're not going to do it
Right, I
for
understand
free.
that, but I'm just saying it's higher than an average boarding.
But you're looking at comparing apples to
Right,
oranges.
so their boarding would be higher too.
Right.
But I'm just saying that they charge more for that because it is more labor intensive.
I guess what I was trying to get across, if we didn't have the shelter, where would you take these animals?
Right, I understand.
You'd be paying a lot.
How many of those a year would you say you average?
I would say we probably, this year alone, had 15 to 20.
Okay.
And that's a scary number.
I mean, just for the sake of time, not wanting to cut anybody short, here's what I would propose tonight. I have found this money, not found, but it has been made available due to the transition with commissioners and the magistrate judge. It's a little over $5,000. I would be willing to make the motion tonight to amend the budget, to add the $5,000. This is based on my personal observation and review of the shelter, my review of comparable shelters and operations in adjacent counties. We are currently collecting taxes from property taxes. We're hoping that that will be finalized sometime around the end of December. I would make I guess what I would say, the proposition that the board at the first of the year, once we have had more of an opportunity to look at the revenue stream coming in, because this is a very tight budget predicated on property taxes as the second largest stream of revenue, that we meet at that time and again review the funding for the shelter from the county. And I just make that as a suggestion, not in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman, because I am open.
I think our budget is very tight this year.
No doubt.
Billy and myself, we discussed the budget, and it's a very, very tight budget that could end us up in the black if we're not, in the red if we're not careful. And we already gave $8,500 for the elections, which should have gone toward the elections the registrar's office, and to pay for elections. And since this $5,000 is only a drop in the bucket, I don't see how that's gonna help the problem.
You know, I'm just looking at the options that we have as far as if the animal shelter closes, you might as well go ahead and be ready to increase your budget, hire an animal control officer, provide a vehicle, and potentially end up having to open up a self-supporting shelter, as well as, you know, letting the stakeholders down who all collectively band together initially to provide this service for multi-jurisdictions. And, you know, I know $5,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but in addition to the $8,500, that is a significant increase over what was budgeted in particular during this very, very tight budget.
And if it shuts down, we're mandatory to have a place to hold the rabid animals.
I do not, is that the case?
I don't
Does
know
the
that
county
it
have
is.
to have a place to hold a
It
rabid
falls
animal?
on the county. You'll have to
Are
pay,
you sure about that?
you'll have to pay a veterinary. If it's a wild or stray animal, it's a county issue.
Here's the
It's known
thing.
that they're to be responsible, but a lot of times that's not the case.
Here's the thing, and I say, they've come before several different times, they've answered all our questions, they've been honest and upfront about their operation, it's been completely transparent. Now, people hear all the time, you know, why don't y'all band together and do things that cost each entity less? This is a perfect example of it. But yet we want to, you know, I see it as trying to micromanage it. I mean, if we want to do it on our own, then, you know, then we need to do it. But otherwise, I think we need to let these folks have the funding they need to keep their operation in operation.
Even if it means us not meeting the budget?
Well, you know what it's going to cost when we do it, have to do it ourselves?
Well, I'm just, we can always look at doomsday scenarios.
Well, I didn't say do it to the detriment. I'm saying go, you know, with the funding, with a commitment to fund it and see if we can find the money as we go forward.
You can make the budget anytime.
Mr. Chairman, this being an informal work session, we have plenty of the citizenry here. I would just like to ask if there's any input that we have from the citizens at this time, if that would be appropriate.
Any input from anybody?
Could you not put that balance sheet and all of this in the paper for the people that would come and donate more? And can you write it off on your taxes? Both?
We do have a letter that we send out that you can write it off on your taxes. I do a story with MJ every week and beg and beg and beg for donations weekly. We've done many stories in the Franklin County Citizen. I'd be more happy to do another story if Franklin County Citizen's willing to do another one, to ask for donations. It's very hard to get donations right now because everybody's in the same situation, doesn't have the money to give.
It is a 501c3 nonprofit organization.
Well, I'm gonna speak up for you ladies because I can tell you, I'm a firm believer that God answers prayers. And I'm a firm believer that if you ask long enough, that you will get what you need. And I can certainly see the need for what you're doing. And folks, once again, there's people that are sitting here in front of you that need your help. Be the people that you're supposed to be. Give them what they're asking for. You're elected officials. These ladies are doing a job for this county. These ladies are doing a job for the people of this county. There is a need. People are having to give away their trusted pets and, you know, part of their family because they can't feed them anymore. These ladies are taking them in and taking care of them and trying to find new homes. If you don't think that's a heartbreaker for a family to have to do that, and take a pet away from a child, you witness it. But I can tell you it's a need. You can amend your budgets. You can take it away from somewhere that might not need us as bad as these ladies do to take care of those creatures. that have been placed on this earth to be taken care of by somebody else. And you ladies do deserve, you know, just all the thanks that anyone can give you for taking care and doing what you do. Because it is a job that I would not want to have to do. And it's a job that you have to have a heart for. But I'm with Sam, I think, you know, that it, you know, you can find money. If you know, if you dig deep enough, you can move a little bit from here, a little bit from here, and a little bit from here. And I agree with Angela. In the long run, it will cost you more to have to hire someone else, pay benefits, pay retirement, find a vehicle, pay gas, do maintenance on that vehicle. I mean, I know. I deal with that every day. So I know, you know, if there's other options in this county of using, you know, inmate power to help these ladies, you know, when they're low on staff, please let them use it. You know, people can help clean cages. They can help walk dogs. Let the, you know, help these ladies do what they're called to do. You know, please find the money and help them any way you can.
You brought out a very good point. The times are so hard that people are having to give away their pets. And I'm a pastor, and I've dealt with people losing their homes because they couldn't pay property taxes. And this is not just arbitrary money that we're spending here, it's real money. And we're on such a tight budget this year to balance the budget. Where do we take it? Stevie, have you got $30,000 to spare in your budget?
I don't know.
Jones, you got $30,000 to spare in your budget? I mean, where are we going to take it?
I understand
We've
that.
cut every department has been cut to keep from raising taxes.
I understand.
And,
Because I'm a
we're
taxpaying
doing-
citizen too,
if-
Clint, I understand.
If we could just have the money, I would love to fund it.
And I'm sure these ladies, you know, somebody said that 5,000 was just a drop in the bucket. I can grant you 5,000 is not a drop in the bucket to any program that I serve. So I can grant you $5,000 is probably not a drop in the bucket to those ladies either when it comes to, you know, supporting anything for their program. I'm sure they would be glad to take that. You know,
Well,
maybe they don't, you know, I'm sure they need the whole $30,000, but maybe today they'd be blessed to take the 5,000, you know, and then
Charles?
find more as you go.
Charles, if you want to fund it, let's find it somewhere else. Let's find it from other departments.
That's what I would ask.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
that's what we're looking for is a commitment. Are we, you know, do we want to pay our fair share? Because we sure are using it.
Well, I'm just saying,
The county
we're on
uses it.
such a tight budget. Find departments that we can take from, whether it be the rec department, sheriff's department, EMS department, and amend the budget, and I want it funded. I don't want just, you know, if we have any left over, or if property taxes don't come in like we think, you know, if we can find it in other departments.
Well, with the time and effort we spend in this budget, I don't think anybody's gonna be able to snap their fingers and find this money. And even so, we still cannot make any type of allocation that large until our property tax digest is collected. Again, I will put this motion on the table. The $5,000+ that we have found that is substantiated as a result of the recent election, I would make a motion that here tonight we amend our budget to add the additional $5,000 that would have been paid out in expenditures, which is now not allocated to the animal shelter, with a commitment that once the property tax digest numbers and revenues have come in, that we sit down collectively and review the request. I put that in the form of a motion. Would ask for a second, if for nothing else, to get it to the point of having open dialogue and discussion.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any discussion? Any
How is it going to be paid out? Because this savings is over a period of a year.
That is correct. There is enough money in the general fund to increase their funding level by $5,000 proportionately.
discussion?
We really need a second before we.
John
second.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I was gonna quit.
One thing I was wondering, I understand your situation, I understand that you'll know more in December. Is there any option of advanced funding it to the point that, since you do have 30,000 allocated, we've already gotten 7,500, which was a quarter of that for the year, for the first quarter. And then, I guess the 8,500 added to that, it would be 16,000. Of the 17,080 that theoretically would be the share for Franklin County, so that was very close to the full amount. Would there be a possibility for the second quarter of doing the same thing, getting close to the full amount of funding by advance funding that? And then, I understand that will leave it way short if no more funding is found, but it may be a moot point if there's no more funding found.
Billy probably answered that question, advance funding.
I won't be in favor of
I
that.
would rather not fund it at the level that you're talking about. I would rather increase it to $5,000 and not fund it at the level of the 68,000. That would just be my opinion.
Well, we got a motion and a second.
Well, I mean, we're almost back to the same thing that we started out with. I mean, if they're not gonna, I mean, if they're not gonna stay open, it's a moot point, even giving them anything.
Okay, and I would agree, but I'm not willing to amend the budget any more than that tonight because nobody, if somebody wants to show me where we can reallocate funds, I'm willing to listen and discuss. The 5,000 was money that I found in review of our budget that we can allocate at this time.
Any more discussion? If not, I'm on.
And I am not opposed to how the 5,000 is allocated.
All right, we got a motion for $5,000. All in favor? Anybody opposed? If not, and the only suggestion I have is, Billy, you just look hard so we can find extra money. You know, it's like they said, in short, give you more, we gotta take it from somebody else. You know. And maybe we can find something towards the end of the year, maybe it comes in. And we don't know that. You know. And we appreciate it, and we're going to the next item. Thank you for coming.
Then there's no chance of getting any advance funding without what you're saying.
I don't have a problem with the 5,000 being in advance. I just don't think we can.
5,000 with the 7,500 coming up next quarter.
I personally would not have a problem with that, provided that our general revenue would accommodate that, and I would think that it would. I do not see that being an issue.
He said Billy can answer those questions. He keeps it all. All right, thank you. We'll move on to the next item. The next item is the energy excise tax, House Bill 387.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, the General Assembly recently passed a new sales tax exemption on energy used in manufacturing. The House bill that you referenced enacted a statute to allow local governments to impose an excise tax to avoid losing that revenue from the new tax exemption. If Franklin County intends to recoup the lost revenue through imposition of this excise tax that's authorized by the statute, we're required to deliver written notice of a meeting to be held with the mayors of each municipality by September 1st to discuss whether or not to impose that excise tax. The excise tax itself would involve the passage of an ordinance and the entry into an intergovernmental agreement with the municipalities that participate in the distribution formula.
Okay, the question I have, I cannot quantify how this is going to impact the county.
And that's not because you're inept. It's because you
It's
can't
that
do it.
plus maybe some other reasons, but
It's because it can't be done. It can't be done by anybody.
Look at the industrial building. How do y'all feel?
Well, right now, we're looking at an industry in the old TNS building on Girard Road. It's for $43 million investment, 300 jobs. we're the only one in Georgia, but we're up against South Carolina and North Carolina. That tax exemption. So,
Common sensitivity.
We're one of only 9 states in the whole United States that still has a tax on energy for manufacturing. And this one, I think, includes agriculture and mining.
It does. There's about 20 separate entities that are covered. And that, my concern is, I agree wholeheartedly. My concern is the impact that it's going to have on our budget. I think this legislation was passed without factoring in the direct impact that it's going to have on our pre-existing budget structure.
Well, I heard, my understanding from, I heard this from someone, I haven't even gone there to validate it, is that the agriculture piece is actually already taking place through exemptions of some kind.
Why were they listed in this legislation
I
then
don't
as being
know.
part
I
of?
can't, like I said, but I understand, that was my understanding, that they're already exempt from paying it in some other manner, but it was listed in this document, so I don't know what that implication is. I think the thing that we need to think about is, from a competitive standpoint, right now, we don't know what the impact is, that's true. But there's a very good chance that it's not as great as many may fear. And if we implement it, then we immediately are going to be at a disadvantage competitive. Stevens County today already voted not to do it. We understand our other neighboring counties are not going to do it. South Carolina doesn't do it, and so, you know, we are constantly bumping up against South Carolina. I think the other thing we need to think about is that it is an economic development tool and advantage to make us more competitive. But this also affects our existing industry. People that are using energy right now, they're aware that this is out there, they know they've been waiting for this to happen, and it's going to have a big impact on them. So it is an unknown, but I think it's a very valid risk to take in order to move forward with what the impact it will have on not only incoming potential industry, but existing industry employers, assuming agriculture is still going.
And I mean, I agree wholeheartedly, you know, very much just like the abatement. I'm a proponent of recruiting and retaining industry, but it's just every year legislature, just like the ad valorem elimination and the transition to the one-time.
It's the same thing
Yeah.
the state keeps doing to us, that, you know, if we say, if we do implement it, we might as well put out a sign and say we're not open for business.
And understand.
My question is, if we don't implement it now, can we go back and do it later?
The legislation said it had to be done this year.
That's my understanding. So it's kind of a now, never, so no matter what impact it has.
We won't know until after the actual numbers.
And nobody has any idea, are we talking about
The Department
tens of
Revenue
thousands or
does
hundreds
not-
of thousands?
They don't track it by where that money is coming from or how, which seems incredulous, but it's true.
Right.
They do not track it. And so, for instance, even when we were, if you're trying to figure out what the impact is on any loss, for instance, it's very difficult. So, or it's impossible. They don't track it.
Like I say, I'm a proponent of recruitment, retaining, doing anything, everything we can for our business owners. It's just a matter of this has been a constant revenue stream, and our revenues have declined, and budgetary needs expanded, and it's really hard to make a decision without having numbers and understanding the.
Can anybody give us a good guesstimate? I mean, is anybody daring enough?
Okay, let me ask this. Is this something that we can take time and investigate and review, and then if any action is to be taken on our part, do it in the September formal board meeting?
Well, the deadline that is facing us right now is the September 1st deadline to provide notice of the meeting to the cities. So I guess theoretically, you could move forward to schedule that meeting and get the mayors all notice of the meeting. You can have that meeting, I think, within 30 days, so that would buy you that time. Of course, but that ignores the impact of the message that sends to the prospect that you're even contemplating going forward with. So,
Well, we've got mayors, we're fortunate tonight to have mayors here tonight. Would y'all be willing to comment at this time? I'm sure y'all have had more insight on the actual impact to the county as well as the cities, and also commercially, knowing the positives that will be gained.
It will impact the cities just like it will the counties. And my council already, we've discussed this, and we're not in favor of imposing this tax. And we're about the rest of it.
And we're in the same boat as y'all are. We have no clue. You know, I spoke to Billy this morning about, you know, give us an amount. Let us know exactly what we're looking at, and if there's nothing out there.
And are we gonna know any more at a later date?
And I know that's scary.
It's gonna put us at a competitive disadvantage.
Right.
Well, with the prospect.
You know, from the aspect of sitting on the Industrial Development Authority, you know, it would be in our best interest to be against it, just for the simple fact of the number of jobs it could bring in Franklin County here, you know, in the near future.
If I was a business looking, I'd go where it was no tax.
Exactly.
Naturally, you know, that's the common sense thing, you know. I think we'd hurt ourselves if we do impose it. That's just my opinion. Because if anything's gonna grow in this economy,
Well, I just cringe when they say South Carolina. Anytime South Carolina's mentioned, this just, I mean, everything goes out the window at that point.
I'm not willing to take any action at this time as far as implementation of the excise tax.
I think we're going just about, when is the deadline?
Well, no, I mean, basically, we would have
Friday.
And when I say not take any action, I mean, and I will clarify,
Okay, I
not
got
move
you.
forward with implementing the excise tax. I do have concerns, but the negatives of implementation far outweigh.
And I think they're telegraphing
Yeah.
that we're looking at it further. It sends a negative message that we don't want out there.
And do want to send a special thanks to our Georgia legislative delegation.
So no action being noted.
In other words, the action would be notifying the cities if you don't take that action, then.
right.
Does everybody
If
agree?
you're not instructing us to proceed with the notification, then that's all we should.
Does everybody agree to not take action tonight?
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next item. That's just county attorney.
Before you is a copy of the order appointing me as the associate probate judge for Franklin County. The appointment requires approval of the county governing authority. We're informed by the Judicial Qualifications Commission that they approve of this arrangement to ensure that the business of the probate court goes on during this uncertain time in that office. I've spoken with probate judge Elaine Ken Evanson, and he agrees as well that this is the best course of action at this time. I view this personally as an opportunity for me to give something back to Franklin County, and it's for that reason that I'm donating my time, not accepting any payment for my service as associate probate judge. So with that said, it'd be appropriate for there to be a motion to ratify the appointment of associate probate judge.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we ratify this associate probate judge appointment.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor? Thank you. All right, the next item is the water system discussion item.
Yes, sir. We have several items to talk about concerning the water system. And also have Bob White is here, Water Director, John Phillips, our County Engineer, and at some point we'll talk about software, and Jones Beasley is here. So this is an informal meeting, and I hope those folks will speak up at the appropriate time. But to give a little information on the first item, which is the State Route 320 Phase 2 water line bids. As you know, Franklin County has been awarded $2 million in GFA funds for water system improvements. $1 million of those funds were allocated for the completion of the Phase 2 portion of the water line on Highway 320. Our county engineer has designed and bid the project, which includes just short of 4 miles of 12-inch PVC water line. We received 5 bids. Griffin Brothers Contractors being the low bid at $597,028.80, which is well within our budget. If the commission would like us to proceed with this project at this time, then everything is actually in place for us to do so. So if you're interested in moving forward tonight, or if you want to discuss the project further, we're glad to do that.
John, with that bid in compliance with all our specifications and
Yes.
completely responsive to you?
Yes, very much so.
And you feel comfortable with them?
Yes, in fact, it's, just for some of your information, it's sort of the second generation of a family business. They've done a lot of work in Madison County recently, done some work even with our connection with Madison County, did an excellent job on the project there, so feel very good about them as far as a contractor.
I know they put the water line from Carnival to London.
Right.
For that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm willing to make the motion that we enter into the agreement with Griffin. I was well pleased after reviewing the bid tabs with the submitted bid and with a quality contractor such as Griffin, who has a history of work in the area. So,
We got a motion and a second. All in favor then? Thank you. All right, the next one, the water meters and computer systems.
That's right. In addition to water lines, GFA funding will be used to pay for water meter replacement program. As you may remember, a recent engineering report identified the need to replace our older meters as well as upgrade our utility billing software because it is dated and cumbersome to use. Staff held a series of meetings with numerous water meter vendors, narrowing down this list to 2 vendors, then further narrowing it down to 1 vendor. We now intend to seek construction bids using Hersey meters for BOC Board of Commissioners consideration. We currently use Hersey meters, and many of our current meters are functioning properly and will not need to be replaced. This will result in additional cost savings that can be used to further expand our water lines. During the meter evaluation process, we also discussed computer software needs. A couple of software vendors were often mentioned, so the staff had additional meetings to analyze their systems. We are currently recommending the county begin using the software and services of QS1 data systems for utility billing, as well as financial management, payroll, and business licensing. We will try to answer any questions concerning this matter, but to recap what I've said, if y'all are agreeable, we're going to move forward getting pricing for replacing our meters, our bad meters, with new Hersey meters, and we'd also like to move forward with QS1 for our software needs as well.
Bob, you got any kind of observations or hesitations about this?
I had hesitation since we started it.
What kind of price is that software? I mean, do we know?
Yeah, we do. We have a price on that. Basically, we have an old AS400 computer in our office, and it is becoming obsolete and hard to find parts. We had that experience last year. It went down on us, and we had a hard time finding someone to fix it. In addition, the software that is used is not Windows-based. I don't know enough to tell you what it is, but it's not current.
It's on the AS400 system.
Yeah, it's AS400 system, and it's very cumbersome to use and difficult to use. So what we're proposing is that we not replace the hardware by new hardware. We're going to do what's called software as a service. We're going to get this company to host for us. Their computer system will be at a remote location. We know where that is. It'll be in Spartanburg, by the way. And we would use just the software. We'd probably have to upgrade 4 of our computers in the office, and this new software would run on that, and it would be used for utility billing as well as the other packages that were mentioned. So considerable savings on hardware alone right there.
Can I interject something, please? what it does for y'all is you don't have to have so much IT support. You totally eliminate any kind of servers. All you do is just literally have workstations at every place. It uses just an internet, a secure internet connection between here and their server. They actually have 2 servers. They have a redundant server in Virginia. They are in data centers where they have the backups and all of that just done daily.
Cloud computing, in other words.
Yeah, it's cloud computing. They don't like to use that word for some reason. They want to do that. They want to say,
That's what it is. I think one of the large computer companies have already pretty much marketed that
They want to call it SaaS for
as
some
being
reason.
kind of proprietary.
Well, the other, the long list they've got out there, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's really, I hadn't really heard about it till this, and it's really a great way to go because it eliminates so much IT work. I mean,
Does anybody have a price on it?
Yes, sir. Do have a price on it. It is, it's $675 per month to use those 4 packages that I mentioned, utility billing being one of them, for, that's $8,100 a year. But to give you an idea, to replace that equipment, I would imagine it'd be probably about 10 times that amount. So you're saving that, a considerable amount of hardware purchase.
And if there are service issues, then they are inclusive in this fee?
That is correct.
and I'm not sure what we're paying now to Harris Computing a month. Do you know, Laverne?
We paid it annually, I think.
Okay.
Well, whatever.
6 or 8,000.
But you've reviewed this, and it's cost-effective and more
Yes,
efficient?
yes, sir. I mean, just when the system broke down last year alone, it cost us about that much. Do you remember how much that was?
Well, no, it really didn't. When our system went down last year, Rachel, that's when Elaine was out with surgery. Rachel was in the middle of payroll, unfamiliar with it to start with, and you can imagine the panic. But when I called the Harris Company, she says that our system was no longer warranted by IBM, which would have been the one to come and fix it. They told me that it would be $2,900 for them to come up here, in addition to any material that they used. And it would be 2 days. So you're not gonna wait 2 days on payroll. She did, the lady that worked at TBS or Harris did know a man that had worked with them before who is with Capital Data right now. And she said, you might give them a call and they might could do something for you. So I did. And that guy was up at the office in, say, 2 to 3 hours. When he came, he brought us some more hard drive. He replaced the fan on the modem, and it was something like
It was $900.
less than $1,000, $975 or something like that.
But the catch to it was, though, if you know anything much about hardware, all that was wrong, but I didn't know it, and I was pretty proficient on computers. All that was wrong, our hard drives was full. That was all it was. We were totally out of space.
97% full.
But you couldn't, there's not a little computer you can click on to check your properties to see where it is, because it's all encrypted. I mean, it's just.
You won't run into capacity issues with this type of
Right.
network setup.
But what I was gonna say was, all it was they just replaced a hard drive. And the hard drive is $100, and so they charged us $900 to put a hard drive in. So, and that's just because it's on that AS400 system. We have got to get away from that.
And the only reason he could do that was because he used to work with it. I mean, a normal person wouldn't have known what to do. Wouldn't have had the material to do it or know where to go to get it.
Well, once again, is
If you're telling me this is gonna increase our proficiency and it's gonna minimize cost and that this is the most cost-effective way to move forward, And I know that you've done your homework and consulted with staff. If that is your recommendation, I would,
And just to make sure we understand, these funds are budgeted.
That's
We
correct.
budgeted on
Okay,
money.
that's
Yes.
what I was.
Yes, sir.
I'd make a motion we go forward. I mean, I don't know if we have to vote on it or not.
I think it probably,
We'd
I
like to-
appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Second.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor then? Thank you. That's GFA funded water line.
All right, we talked a lot about GFA funds tonight. Well, there's a third leg to that GFA funding, and that is to install additional water lines in addition to the 320 water line that you've approved, and on the meters that you just talked about as well. The staff would like to get started with the design and bidding of the additional water lines because there is a timetable required from GFA. And so we'd like to get started on that. We are actually recommending some roads. If you have some other ideas, that would be great, but these are roads that we start designing on and would be installed within the year. And we're recommending State Route 326 and Rock Pillar Road and Bold Springs Church Road. All of them are on the current priority list. We believe that the State Route 326 is a good project for a contractor since it deals with DOT and there's time issues involved there and permitting and so forth. And then there's also 2 water crossings on that project. Rock Pillar and Bold Spring Church Road are in that same area, so it makes for a nice package for bidding purposes to put those 3 roads together. We think there will be additional roads available for GFA funding, but if you would let us get started on some design, then that would get us ahead of the game.
Are there any, I know we had, we talked with some people on Casey Road.
Item number 12.
Yeah, number 12.
Yes, sir.
Does anybody have any, I think that is something that we need to look at, because number one, it's already a dead end tap, and it would complete the loop between Jackson Bridge and oh gosh.
327.
Yeah, 327.
Let's
New
see.
Franklin
Yeah.
Church Road is what I'm trying to think
State Route
of.
327.
Right.
Well, one thing that I would like to look at, I definitely think that's a priority. One thing that I want to discuss tonight, I would like to differentiate our water system expansions and have a list that we're proposing to be installed with our county forces. And to me, Casey Road would be one of the top priorities because it's on a county road. You're not going to have to deal with the state permitting issues. There's no water crossings, and you're not going to have the traffic control required on a state route, and it's not very lengthy and can be done, by our forces.
Yeah, it is a water crossing. It's not a-
But I mean, when I
Not a
say
major
water
one.
crossing,
Not
I
major
mean, it's
one,
not
not a
something
river.
you're gonna have to do a bridge attachment or a major bore. Like, I will qualify that. I would rather maintain major projects, and when I define major, that being something with either a larger PVC or some type of ductile iron on state routes where there's the potential for major traffic control issues, water crossings, etc., and relegate those to contract and do roads like Casey Road with our forces.
I agree.
And that way, we're basically, we've got a 2-pronged approach, and we're expanding our system exponentially. Billy, even in addition to the roads that you've named, I've looked at our level of funding. We have the existing GFA funding. We actually have SPLOST funds that have already been collected. Those funds are specifically for water and sewer. They can be used for either. I do know that we're working towards looking at a countywide sewer system along the let me rephrase, I didn't want to say county-wide sewer system. I want to say a sewer system that ties in Carnesville and the major interchanges up and down Highway 59. But I do not think, since that scope has been reduced, that it is going to take the full funds that we allocated for water and sewer. So I think we have a revenue source there. We have money that's specifically allocated in water bonds, and I would even be willing to look at general revenue in order to expand this contract. And the reason being, there's not a meeting lately, and my telephone's been ringing off the hook since the discussions about water have arisen again, and that coupled with the drought, etc. People are wanting water for their residents, for their farms, etc. It is very beneficial for fire protection, insurance rates. It generates revenue for the county and provides a valuable resource to, the citizenry in the county. I would like to look at those 4 funding sources and look at even expanding this project even further, Billy, if that is something that we can refine our level of funding, and even on top of that, request additional GFA funds, because we pretty much have the existing GFA allocated, inclusive of this proposed contract. But, in a nutshell, I would like to expand this current proposal.
That's great. That's great. The only thing that I would ask is if we could leave tonight knowing that we could start designing some roads.
Mm-hmm. Right. But I do want to also say that we need to look into paying our GFA loan off as soon as possible also.
Okay, see, we had 2 options. We had the water bond funds that we could pay the whole GFA loan off, but we were looking at the differential in the interest rates.
Exactly. But what I'm saying, I don't want to get into what I was trying to point out, let's not get into our water, our bond funds where we wouldn't have enough to pay that debt.
Agree with that.
But I do agree we need to look into expanding this. But
Billy, one that I have seen is the Brays Lake Road. It's at the top of our priority list. You can look, the services per 1,000 feet, 4.17. There are poultry houses on Brays Lake Road, significant number of residences, many of which have inquired about, having water provided, 6-inch water line. I think that is one that I would really like to see added to contract just by virtue of the number of services, farms. I mean, it meets every criteria that we have.
Okay.
But I would defer, I know we're going to be talking about the priority list, and I would defer to my colleagues for further comments regarding
It stands out as far as services per 1,000 foot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it should be at the top of the list.
could we add that into?
Yeah, that is what I would like to see, that added to the roads that
we talked about,
yes.
the other 4.
John, do you have any comments? I know you're very familiar with that area.
I think that would be fine, and if we're successful in getting contract prices very similar to what we just received, then we would definitely be able to do those roads that we talked about earlier, as well as Brays Lake. Right. In fact,
my request for expansion on the good prices that we have been given.
So personally, what I would like to do is put together a package that we think may be even a little in excess of the amount of money, and we can always cut back if we need to, but if we can get these good prices, why not take advantage of those while we can?
Agree wholeheartedly. I would like to see Brays Lake added to the roads that you're going to start your permitting on. And then, in turn, also look at our county installed priority list, which I would say we probably want to keep it to a minimum of maybe, 2 or 3, because I know you're going to be doing it with your current staffing, and y'all have a lot to do with the your plant down at the interstate, as well as additional services, maintenance of the existing, and repairs.
Right now, we're working on Aiken Road. weather permitting, we probably got 6 months left out there. And that's a long time, but, you know, we work probably 3 weeks out of the month. We got 1 week, we just take off reading meters and putting in
Absolutely.
services and doing everything else. But, and yeah, we're coming on pretty good on it, but, you know, I'd much rather work on county roads. I don't like working.
And that's where we want you.
I don't like working
Yeah.
on state routes.
And you don't have the level of staffing required for many of their traffic control requirements.
Not really.
One other item, just for consideration, particularly regarding Bob and his staff installing line. As you recall, we took advantage of some really good material prices and bought quite a bit of pipe a few years back. Well, Bob, combined with what he's installed with our water line extension that several of our citizens have taken advantage of, believe it or not, a lot of that pipe is in the ground now. So that's one thing to think about as we start working down this list, is at some point in the not too distant future, we're really going to need to look to provide Bob and his staff with the pipe to do a lot of these projects. So that's another expense.
Do we have enough down there to cover Aiken and then possibly 2 more roads? And I know it might be contingent on the length, but maybe Casey Road and another one?
When we, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but I think when Bob actually finishes Aiken Road, you're going to be down on 6-inch pipe.
I'm gonna be down on 6. I'm gonna
Okay.
put it pretty low on 6-inch pipe. Got a lot of 8. But,
Well, you know, in our contract, we'll require that the contractor furnish the
Right,
material.
exactly.
right.
Unless somewhere along the line we can find materials at a significantly reduced price, and then it would benefit us to let them do the labor and us furnish materials. So we keep our options open.
Right.
We could even get a price from each.
Sure.
You know, one with material, one without.
Just for clarification, we're talking about the county, Bob's crew, after Aiken going to Casey.
Well, I think that is definitely one of the options, and in looking at the length of the road, the derived benefit, the number of residences, poultry houses, et cetera, and it's going to be a very easy road for them. It's just, you know, it's linear, it meets all the criteria that I feel like
And plus, we do have a dead end tap.
on either end.
And so we may have to buy some pipe, Bob, to
Correct.
complete that, possibly.
Talk to me, John. Where
I
am
think
at?
we'd be pretty close.
We'll be close on
Pretty
that.
close
How
on
far,
it.
how far
Be
is
awful
that?
It's a little over 9,000 feet, and I think we figured 8,800, 8,500 feet or so
And I've
probably
got-
left after Aiken Road.
I've got some 200s, so.
Right.
That's what we'd be using on that road.
Right. Do we hear a motion to approve these roads on the GFA funding?
Awesome, make that motion to
Can you clarify
Okay.
for media and those in the public in attendance, which roads you're referencing with the motion?
You said Brays Lake Road, State Route 326, Rockefeller Road, and Bow Springs Church Road. Do we hear a motion on that? So moved, got a motion?
I'll say.
Any more discussion? If not, all in favor? Okay.
Okay, now could we talk about, I would like to maintain 2 separate lists.
Yes, sir.
And,
That's
you know,
great.
we don't want to get too lengthy because we know that Bob, with his limited crew and staffing, is not going to be able to do but maybe 1 or 2 a year.
Yeah, I
if
mean,
that.
it just depends,
Right.
depends on what happens. And weather,
How much rock you find out there?
Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean,
Rock falls.
given the interest that's been shown by residents along Casey Road, and it absolutely meets the criteria that we've established as being what we feel like can be done efficiently and effectively by our forces, you know, I would like to see Casey Road placed on the top of that particular list to follow Aiken Road.
If we're going to open for discussion.
Absolutely.
I'd like to consider 6, 16, and 16A. That would complete a loop.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, can we just basically, we're already informal. If anybody would like to come up here, let's put our water line map out. That's pretty much what we had planned to do with the array of our tables here and let everybody.
That's it right there.
Everybody just gather around. I've been trying to get them around ever since I started.
In case anybody has
Six, 16 and 16. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Okay, all right.
16A Allen Farm Road. And 6A.
It makes a lot of sense.
No, 6, 16, and 17.
Y'all have any input? Because this is gonna be a project. Bob, we're limited staff.
Well, no, that makes sense to do.
It really takes everybody that he has to install the line, to really not concentrate on a lot of traffic.
You know, your volume of traffic, your required traffic control, signing, et cetera, and complexity, because there's more requirements out there on the state
Right.
route.
And the only other thing that I'll offer regarding that 106 line is really, it would just be a dead-end line if we simply extend it. What I'd really like to do is if we do that line, I'd like to include that loop on Higginbotham Road.
Right,
back
right,
over
that was
to
the
town.
intention, and it goes back into
Exactly,
Terrytown.
that's right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
Higginbotham
it's on
is another one of those where it doesn't seem that we have right of way.
Oh, really?
And I have had some conversations with some of those residents, though, that have indicated, at least at this point, they would be willing
Yeah,
to
they're
dedicate to
wanting
get the water. Right.
Could it be a possibility to run down 106 with a contract and then
Absolutely, yeah.
that may be an option to
But you
account
gotta
for
let
our
the contract
crews.
and get the one in on 106 preferably.
Yeah.
Before you do your Higginbotham extension,
Right.
Wow. I mean, what reason?
Well,
so you don't end up with a dead end line.
I'd like to have it, yeah,
Sort of in conjunction.
in conjunction. It
Yeah,
doesn't
because
really have
either
to
way,
be-
you're gonna end up with a
That's
good
right.
bit of dead-end line.
Correct. So, I guess what I'm envisioning is if we say we want to include the 106 as part of a contract, then in all likelihood, that line would be there first. But it would be there so that Bob would come in and make the connection.
Yeah, okay.
We could include in it everything, the bore under 106 to get over to Higginbotham and everything as part of that project.
Is
and make it
the
easier for Bob.
Royston Poultry Farm, is it past Higginbotham or before you get there?
It's where it could be served by this water line.
Okay, I know he's got at least 3 or 4 chicken houses.
Now, which side of is currently,
We're on the right side going toward Madison.
Right.
okay, I was thinking it's on the left because
Yeah.
of Carytown.
Right.
Right.
Right there comes in.
But we're on the opposite side, so we'd have to cross the roadway to get over
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Right.
Any other roads?
So what, on the Higginbotham Road, what did we decide?
We've got to acquire right of way before we even, in my opinion, really prioritize it. That was one of the criteria we used when we initially put this list together. The roads had to have
Yeah.
pre-existing dedicated right of way.
If not, any more roads, we can move on to the next subject. If y'all through the top of these. All right, we'll go on to the next subject then. Additional wells.
Before we do, I just want to make sure, John and Bob, y'all feel that you got enough information, you think, to,
If John's got enough for,
The most critical thing for me right now is this GFA contract package that we want to put
Absolutely.
together, because I need to be working on it
The
now.
timeliness of it.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, we're looking at Brays Lake, State Route 326, Bowles Spring Church Road, Rock Pillar Road, and do we want to include that section of State Route 106 in that package as well?
I would rather be optimistic and have to reduce it as to
Yeah.
not.
Mhm.
I mean, we might even get additional GFA funding.
Well,
I
and
mean, we have rated very high in our previous submittals.
we have, and I know I don't think that's on the list tonight, but if we do want to pursue additional GFA funding, it's time to do that as well. So we need to get the preliminary information into them very soon as well.
I think us having a priority list and it quantified as far as, you know, number of poultry farms,
It has
the
helped
number
us
of potential
tremendously.
taps helps tremendously.
Yes.
So, what was the last one you said, that section of 106?
Correct.
On
To get down to Higginbottom.
Okay.
Right.
Madison County does not have water across the bridge down there, do they?
No.
Not currently.
Okay.
Oh, John, will you briefly talk about the Madison connection that you've been talking to them about?
I will. Speaking along those lines, one thing that Madison County is doing is they are looking at expanding their system on State Route 29, or US 29, State Route 8. From at 174 Salem Church Road, you know, we have water there, and on 29, they are working on plans to connect to our system, go across the bridge into Madison County, and put in quite a bit of line, and we would be their sole source of water there for that portion of their water distribution system. So they're working on that as we speak.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, all right, then we will move on to the last item that I had for the water, and that's the additional wells. At the present time, Franklin County is in good shape with the water supply we receive from our 3 wells plus our connection to the co-op system. However, it's always important to plan for the future when our demand for drinking water is more than it is today. So I ask these questions. Do we want to explore the option of adding additional wells to our system? And do we want to make financial commitments today to secure those water supplies for the future? So we would appreciate y'all's thought and consideration of additional wells for our system.
I think we always need to be very proactive in looking at additional water sources, because the rate of our current payments to those who own wells, it's about half of what we're paying for the city of Decoa. And by taking these additional wells online, it has actually increased our profitability and profit margin. And the financial output from the county is actually minimal, because the cost of actually installing the well is borne by the citizen. But I do understand they need a commitment from us that, number one, we would tie in and utilize the water if they expend those resources. So, you know, I think if they're strategically located, I think we need to be proactive and, you know, look at additional water sources, and as previously stated, to minimize the cost that we're paying for supply. And from what the water quality standards are very high, and we've never had any issues with any of the wells that we currently have online.
If we go ahead and put them, you know, if we go ahead and put another well online, you know, based on our current capacity, is that going to reduce, you know, what we're, I mean, Bob, you know what capacity we're using the 3 wells at?
We're not using probably 75%, 60%, something like that. Right now, you know, of course, we're getting in the time of year now. John, I can produce 700 gallons a minute, something like that.
Our permit limits for our 3 wells that we have now actually go up to 1.5 million gallons per day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can't pump that amount of water out of the ground due to some restrictions on pump size, different things. The other thing that we're being told is from the geologists, in all likelihood, we don't want to pump their maximum continuously anyhow, because we stand a pretty large risk of losing a water source if we do that. So if we figure at about 750,000 gallons per day out of the ground safely that we could get from our 3 wells now, we're at about half that amount average that we're selling, probably somewhere around around 375,000 gallons per day we're selling. So we can produce twice what we can sell, which sounds like a lot, but at the same time, typically you design your system to where that you can produce 2.5 times your peak, which would be your peak demand.
You've got to remember, with this expansion here, you're going to significantly be increasing the volume consumed.
Exactly. So where we are really is it sounds like at 2 times that's a lot more, but But really, we want to be at 2.5 to cover that peak demand, like Bob's talking, when you get into droughts, when you get into the high temperatures. So really, we're not way above the curve as far as the amount of water we can produce as Franklin County. So my thoughts would be, anytime we can secure a good water source and we can have that down the road, that's only going to benefit us as far as Franklin County.
And maybe if they're geographically located, so you're not in the same sub-aquifer or something, you know, where you're not.
And that's another point. You know, the 3 wells that we have now are relatively close in distance. Now, I wish I could say, I could tell you, yes, either they are or not in that same pocket of water, but really none of us know.
Well, it's
Just till something happens.
It's also nice to have an additional supply. You know, I know a lot of ours are one-way feeds, but if you tie a well on, you potentially would have the option of providing the water service from another direction.
Correct.
Potentially. Billy, I think we need to take a proactive stance and move forward. And yet, we need to be very clear with those that are looking at this as a financial investment that, you know, we cannot guarantee and have no guarantee of the usage.
And that's good. That's what we wanted y'all to hear from you, is that you want us to move ahead, and that means we'll spend a little money, you know, along the way, but for a good end result. So we'll move in that direction. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Manager?
How does it work with the city of Livonia, what they pull? Because don't they have a permit where they can pull out of Lake Hartwell?
We have a connection with Livonia, but we don't exchange much water, if any, between the two systems.
Is there any way that we could look at that for down the road?
What David is asking is, could we actually, you know, they've got a straw in Lake Hartwell,
right,
a good source of water. Could we get water from, you know, from Livonia?
We actually have the interconnection to where we can do that. In fact, one of the things that I think Franklin County had a lot of foresight to do is one of the things they said early on as part of the water systems. They wanted to have a connection to all 5 municipalities in the county.
You can buy and sell water back and forth.
We could buy water from Livonia. We have bought water from Livonia.
And Livonia has bought water from us.
They've bought water from us. But we don't, the valve's closed 99% of the time.
Is there any advantage to buying more water from Livonia? Is it, you know, is it cheaper?
The last time when we looked, it was the cost.
They get it out of Lake Hartwell.
They get it out of Lake Hartwell, but didn't we buy water? Don't we buy water from Stevens County?
From Toccoa. The Franklin County has a connection to the Toccoa system, and we do buy water from Toccoa, yes.
Right.
Yes.
But I was thinking we keep money in our.
Well, that's what we would like to do, absolutely.
I don't know that Livonia would want to be that big of a provider.
Right.
I think they've got a lot of their water spoken for.
We have spoken directly with Livonia, and they had issues with their withdrawal permit not being able to provide. City of Toccoa does not have an issue with the amount that they can withdraw and provide to us. But we had looked at that from a cost standpoint.
If nothing else on that, we'll go to the motion to go to executive session for litigation.
I make the motion.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
I guess we better go this
Only chair can slide.
Hey, sir.